Hi, everyone. Welcome to Lecture 6. This week, we are going to talk about Chapter 5, which focuses on the timing of entry. There are three main objectives. First, we'll explore the trade-off between early and late entries into an industry. Second, we'll then discuss the effect of how increasing in returns to adoption has on product diffusion and discuss the effect of increasing returns on entry timing. And finally, we'll also identify the characteristics of firm that enable them to choose which entry mode they will adopt. So let's get started. So early entry can be crucial to the successful adoption of a new technology. This is especially true when the technology benefits from increasing return to adoptions. But the same characteristic that make early entry desirable can also make the technology unattractive. For example, there may be a few users early on, and the firm may have to develop or support the development of needed complementary product if it's new to the world innovations. So basically, there will be corresponding costs to educate the end users and even the potential partners. And entrants are often divided into three categories: first mover, early followers, and late entrants. The research on this topic on when it's best to enter result in inconclusive evidence. There are a number of factors that influence how timing of entry affect firms' survival and profit, such as market-related factors, such as availability of complementary goods, development of enabling technology, and degree of customer certainties. Others are firm-specific factors, such as capital resource, prior experience, and reputation. So overall, there are both positive and negative consequences for these different entry modes. And let's next first look at the advantages associated with first movers. So first movers' advantage often include the following: the ability to build brand royalties and leadership, and the ability to access resources that may become scarce in the long run. If an industry is characterized by increasing return, two more advantages that firm may benefit from are learning about the technology and customer requirement before the competitors do, and the network externalities. Now let's look at these more carefully. First is brand royalty and technology leadership. This would be the primary benefit from first entry. Customer may consider the first firm to enter into a technology domain to be the technology leaders. The reputation for the technological leadership can enhance the company's ability to shape customers' expectation. For example, what feature to look for and what should be the pricing point. B. And it can also be sustained if the technology is difficult to imitate and is protected by patent or copyright. Second advantage of being a first mover is it will allow the company to preempt scarce asset. They can prevent late entrants from accessing key locations, for example, or important distribution channels, getting government permits, such as broadcast rights, and can make the development of relationship with suppliers for subsequent players more difficult. For example, late entrants that want to provide wireless communication service face the problem that government have already auctioned off most of the radio frequency needed to provide the service. A new firm faced the situation of having buy or lease. That is, if the government permit those transactions, the needed frequency from its competitors, or simply not entering the market space. Third advantage is that it will exploiting buyer switch cost, will enable early mover to keep their customer, even if the late entrants offer a superior technologies. These switching costs, including the cost of the product and the cost associated with learning how to use the products. If there are significant costs, these expensive switch costs will prevent customers from using the product or service from the followers. Finally, increasing return advantage are self-reinforcing and can be gained in an industry that experiences pressure to adopt the dominant design. These advantages often accumulated in the technological entrenchment as dominant design. For example, Intel's invention of the first microprocessor in 1971 and Microsoft's introduction of BASIC in 1975 are good example of increasing return advantages and their self-reinforcing nature that we have discussed in the previous chapter. However, first mover also have the corresponding disadvantages as well. For example, when Thales and Gobder contrast the experience of first mover and early followers, they found that first mover have higher failure rate, 47% in fact, and lower market shares than the early followers. Early mover often will have around 10% of the market share, while early followers will have around 30%. So that's the 3 times the difference. And first mover can earn greater revenue, but also will have to endure higher costs. With a result, they earn significantly lower profit over time as a consequence. The costs incurred by first mover, they are non-existent or greatly reduced for followers, including the expenditure on research and development of supply and distribution channels, development of enabling technology, development of complementary goods and service, and product trials to determine what feature consumer actually like. Later entrants can also adopt newer and more efficient production process as well. Right, so that's why first mover often will be very costly, especially the research and development expense. Those costs tend to be higher for first mover than those for later entrants, simply because their exploration costs are high. They have paid for research that may not result in commercially viable product. They also bear the cost of developing production process and complementary good that later entrants can leverage without usually a very large upfront investment made by the first movers. Second disadvantage is that underdeveloped supply and distribution channels. As a new tool, the world technology often don't have ready-made suppliers or distributors. The first mover then have to either develop or produce their own supplies or supplies and distribution service, or assist the development of supplier and developer markets. Third disadvantage is that immature enabling technology and complements. For example, PDA developers were reliant on the development of battery and modem by other firms. Similarly, when complementary products are not readily available, the adoption rate for technology is slower. And this effect occurred in the development of hydrogen fuel cell powered vehicles. Development of this alternative energy had been slow simply because there's no ready way to fuel car using the new technology. And you can take a look at theory in action section of this chapter. And finally, uncertainty regarding customer requirements can cause the first mover to incur great expense to learn what customer wants. And at this stage, especially when firms enter into a completely new market space, the traditional market research won't do any good, simply because customers do not know what or how they will use the new products. So company will have to pay for product, a customer understanding customer preference, and further refine product accordingly. A great example would be Kodak. It was first to introduce the 8mm video camera in the late 80s, but withdrew from the market due to a poor response from customers. As you know, the story did not end well for Kodak. By the early 1990s, customers became more comfortable with the technology and Sony successfully entered the market, leaving Kodak to play catch up or not re-enter at all. This may have been the case where Kodak would have been better off by spending on customer education efforts. So given the advantage and disadvantage, so why does the belief that first mover advantage persist? Well, maybe because there has been successful first mover and available for people to remember. And furthermore, because the market has in many cases misidentified the first movers. For example, P&G was not the first mover in the disposable diaper market because they are the market leader. Many think they were. In fact, P&G entered the market 30 years after the first entrance. So the next two tables illustrate that example that first mover may not always be the winners, right? So just have to be aware that this is exactly because the disadvantage and advantage associated with first movers. So when you think about how to enter, whether to be the first mover or second mover, or even late entrance, you may want to figure out what would be the best strategy for your company. So how does a firm decide whether to pioneer a technology category, first mover, or wait until others do? The answer would depend on several factors, including customer certainty, the margin of improvement offset by the new technology, and the state of enabling technologies and complementary goods, and the threat of competitive entries, the degree which the industry exhibit increasing return and the firm's resources. So let's talk about these factors in detail. How certain are customer preference? Well, more certain customer preference favor early entry. simply because it's not as costly for them to understand the customer and educate them. Both company and consumer learn which feature create the most value as they gain experience with the product. There are exceptions such as drug development targeting certain diseases or symptoms where the customer requirements are high, clear from the outset. Feature initially thought to be important may not be, such as exciting graphic and sounds were initially thought to be needed to establish an e-commerce presence. And feature initially thought to be unnecessary or not as important turned out to be important to customers, such as Sony's PlayStation 2's console included the ability to play music videos, music CDs, or DVDs that Sony actually thought of secondary importance to the functionality supporting gameplay. As it turned out, some customers purchased the console for the CD and DVD function as well. Despite layout, and this was bad news for Sony because the console was so or near cost to increase adoption and profit are derived from game sales. Second factor is how much of a margin of improvement does the innovation provide over previous technologies. The higher the improvement, the more likely a firm is going to be successful entering early because the product will more rapidly gain customer acceptance. And third is, does the innovation require enabling technology or are they sufficiently mature? Readily available enabling technology facilitate early entry and vice versa. The fourth factor is, do complementary goods increase the value of innovation and are they sufficiently available? If the firm's innovation requires complementary goods, they are not available on the market and the firm is unable to develop those complements, successful early entry is unlikely. Fifth, how big is the threat of competitive entry? Entry barriers and the profit potential of technology both play a role in assessing the threat of competitive entry. High entry barrier enable a firm to delay entry, but if a firm delay entry when entry barrier are low and the value of the technology is high, they are likely to face a very competitive situation when they do enter. And finally, on this slide, is the industry likely to experience increasing return to adoption? Early entry is advisable if an industry is likely to experience increasing return to adoption. If a competitor enters earlier and builds a large install base, it may be very difficult to get customers to switch products, especially if competitors' technology have been established as the dominant design. 7 is that, can the firm withstand early losses? To avoid the situation Moneta's experience in the PDA industry, companies have to have deep pockets. Large capital reserve enable a firm to weather a long period of market confusion and low sales. On the other hand, these same resources can also enable a firm to enter later because they can more readily catch up. Nestle was able to leverage its brand name, for example, strong capital position to overtake General Foods Maxim as a late entrant. 8. Does the firm have resources to accelerate market acceptance? If a firm can invest in market education, suppliers, and distributor development, and can sponsor the development of complementary goods and service, then it is more likely to be successful with early entry than a firm that cannot underwrite those kind of efforts. Ninth, is the firm's reputation likely to reduce the uncertainty for customers, suppliers, and distributors? The positive effect of a strong reputation can improve the chance of successful early entry by reducing consumer uncertainty with regard to the utility of the new technology and its quality. In addition, a firm that is thought to be technological leader is also more able to attract suppliers and distributors. For example, Microsoft's announcement that it will enter the personal digital assistant market caused many distributors to wait for Microsoft's products. So there has been a lot of research on whether and when to enter. Will Mitchell is one of the pioneers who studied this type of question. However, he asked a slightly different question in his research. He studied when incumbent firms in the industry enter an emerging subfield and found that firms with specialized assets applicable to the new subfield and firms with product that were threatened by the new product firms were more likely to enter early. He also found that incumbents would enter even earlier if core product were threatened and there were several potential rivals that could also enter. And in terms of for strategy to improve the timing options, well, first of all, upon the point we have assumed that entry timing is a choice that a firm makes. This is only true when a firm is capable of producing the technology at any point in the relevant time frame. Well, or the firm has a fast cycle development process. However, these conditions may not always be the case, right? So you really need to take these into account. You need to consider whether a firm have the capabilities to become the first entrant. If it does, then you need to consider the advantage and disadvantage associated with being the first mover. Then you will be able to make a better choice for the firm. All right, that's it for today. Thanks so much.